We are Cobb County Fire and Emergency Services with 29 stations covering 345 square miles and home to over 760,000 residents. The purpose of this podcast is to learn about our firefighters who selflessly serve Cobb County. For those who are interested in becoming a firefighter, we hope this podcast will give you a better understanding of what it takes to be in this profession. Welcome to the Cobb Fire Podcast.
I'm Dustin Martinez with the Join Cobb Fire podcast, and today we're joined by a pretty cool guest. It's got a unique story. Wesley Sheard. Wes, can you...
Hello, Dustin.
How are you, buddy?
I'm doing good.
Good. Can you kind of talk about, I think people probably have figured out your accent by now. Got a unique story on how you both got to the department and here in Georgia. Can you kind of talk a little bit about that background?
Yeah, for sure. Firstly, I want to say thanks for having me on. I feel like we've come a long way since 2010. I feel like this is kind of a keep your friends close, but your enemies closer. You're on the hazmat team and I'm on the TRT team. So I came over on a golf scholarship back in 2003. Played golf pretty much all my life back home. I was the top recruited junior coming out of Zimbabwe. That's how I kind of got recruited over here to the States. It's kind of I'd always dreamt and had a goal of coming to America. I don't know what it was, but that was one of my main goals is to get out of Zimbabwe and come experience the American life. Just got a golf scholarship to Kennesaw State. Played all 4 years. My freshman year at Kennesaw was our first year as a program in Division I. So it was a pretty cool experience for me. Got to play with, the likes of Georgia and Georgia Tech and Alabama and Auburn, like kind of the top 20 golf programs in the country. So it was kind of straight into the fire. It was a big culture shock coming over here from Zimbabwe. But I spent all 4 years there. I lived on campus for 4 years, so I had a good time.
So you said 2003 you came over.
Yep.
So, 4 years, knock out your degree. And, we kind of actually ended up in recruit school, a couple months staggered back in 2010.
Yep.
So what are you doing from that time between, you're done with school and you haven't started for the fire department yet. You got a couple years there. Like, what were you doing at that time?
Yeah, so, my kind of lifelong dream was always be a professional golfer. So I graduated from Kennesaw in 2008. And I was like, all right, I'm going to give it one good shot at trying to become a professional golfer. 2008 was unfortunately when the economy crashed. It's not all trying to become a professional athlete, and I know some people might say golfers aren't athletes, but it's truly a hard sport to get into as far as the professional ranks. You're one of 2,000-3,000 guys all graduating at the same time, trying to do the same thing. It's expensive. I finished college. I actually moved into an apartment right up the road here on Delk Road. So I always saw Truck 19, Engine 19 running up and down Powers Ferry and Delk. And I was traveling down to Orlando. I made it onto a mini tour down there. And so I was driving down there every weekend, playing tournaments, driving back. I was working at a golf club. And kind of like to go back to 2001 when September 11th happened, being in Zimbabwe, kind of so far away from that scene, what actually happened, it was like, wow, like, if something like that someone is attacking America, what's going to happen to the rest of the world, So that was a huge kind of impactful event, and I know it is for everyone else, but because I knew I was coming to America that following year, I was like, wow, like this, this is it's going to be an experience, and that always stayed with me. And then, I always thought to myself, I was like, man, that would be that'd be a really cool career to have if golf never worked out. And like I said, living in an apartment just up the road and seeing truck 19, engine 19, and you know the golf career wasn't as what I thought it would be. It was a grind. It was stressful. You know, I was like, let me see what the fire department is all about, because you know I'd always been part of a team, even though it was golf. You're part of a team, and you know I went online and found out Cobb Fire was hiring, and you know, like you said, 2010. Right before we got hired, you know, I'm sitting there at the written test with 3,000 other people, and I was like, what am I doing here? You know, like,
I think because like, you know, I remember, you know, there's 3,000 applicants. We're doing this written test, and then, hey, 14 are starting in January, 14 are starting in like March or April, I think it was. Yeah. So, you know, you're kind of unsure. You're trying to get into it, and then you feel like you hit the jackpot, you know. So you had already talked about kind of going from that team aspect in golf to the grind by yourself, trying to make it pro, you know, and the fire department kind of gives you that ability to join back on a team. And we have so many collegiate athletes here and ex-professional athletes that I think a lot of times people forget, you know, there is that component of like athletes in, you know, competition, sports, but then on the flip side, like we have that occupational athlete, which is what we are. Yep. Can you kind of talk about that shift going from the collegiate athlete to the occupational athlete, and what you've seen similarity-wise, and what prepared you and helped you from your background to when you got on the fire department?
Yeah, you know, it's an interesting topic because a lot of the same aspects go together with that. You know, and I know I'm not the only one, but you know, all your life you've had this dream being a professional athlete, and when that doesn't happen, it's like, wow, like, what do I do with myself now? Yeah. You know, that was like...
A lot of us, you know, like, you got to live your dream in college. Like, you know, a lot of us, it ends in high school. Yep. You know, some make it all the way. At some point, that dream is over.
Yeah, and you kind of like,
now
that was your whole identity, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, I don't have that anymore. You know, if you make it to college, especially to like a Division I program, even Division II, you have that base of having some dedication, having some consistency, having that drive to be better, and you have this kind of sense of you love competition, you love competing, and like I said, golf, it's an individual sport, but you're part of a team, and so translating that to the fire service, I mean, you know, you want to talk about professional athletes, we have to be to that standard. Like, we are elite, tactical, professional athletes. You know, if you think you're fit, just put on some gear, stop breathing in, do some functional movements around, and it's a game changer. You kind of have to have both, you know, that metabolic efficiency and that strength to be able to efficiently perform.
Can you talk a little bit about, you know, what that recruit school environment does to build those components? You know, like, I remember us back in recruit school, and it was like, hey, you're running this day, the next day you're doing weightlifting, you know, and you're fluctuating back between cardio and lifting and functional fitness, and then you're, you know, putting your gear on and you're doing all this work, right? So can you talk a little bit about how by varying your fitness regimen early, especially in the recruit school environment, you're setting yourself up for success in your career?
Yeah, you know, and I know when me and you went through back in 2010 to what it is now, it's a completely different recruit school. You know, going down there and seeing what those guys are doing now, it's completely changed for the better.
I feel like they're more prepared now by the time they leave recruit school.
100%.
Than, you know, certainly than we were in 2010.
Yep. And you know, like I said, if you have been an athlete or you're good at sports and you have that athleticism, you can adapt to that a lot quicker than someone who hasn't been doing that.
Yeah. But I mean, you don't have to be a collegiate athlete, a professional athlete, right? We're going to obviously show you all those components of how to get there. But, you know, especially if you're interested in the job, being committed to fitness early is something that's going to carry you both, you know, to be ready early on in the recruit school environment and get you through that long grind of that recruit school.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, it's the whole, you know, fire service with being healthy, that all starts with nutrition, right? The sleep studies that are coming out, All that's just getting better and better and better. So it's, if you like to stay active and fit, we're at the station for 24 hours. We literally get paid to work out, to be fit, to be healthy.
And then to test it.
Yeah.
And
the citizens, they expect us to be at that level of the elite professional athlete, right? Look at the equipment we have in all the stations and all our gyms. I mean, we got brand new squat racks, we got bikes, we got rowers, we got everything that you could want to get to that level. So, it's an expectation. You take that oath. There's no excuse to not be at a high performing physical shape. It's not personal, it's business. And and I think Cobb as a department, we're at the forefront of that. And it's exciting to see. And I'm really proud of how far we've come since, even since me and you've come through recruit school.
Absolutely. So, kind of shift from the physical fitness component. So you've been on since 2010. Your career, you've gotten on some cool stuff in regards to, where you've been assigned, some of the apparatus you're assigned to. Can you talk a little bit about, since you got hired, what that career progression looked like for you?
Yeah. So like I said, 2010, first stations were Station 5 and then Station 30.
Right there, right? You go from a high-rise district down to, like the busiest station in the department at the time.
And, never mind the station and the calls that we ran there, it was the crews that were there, the officers. I know me and you have come from the same lineage of officers.
Can you say that word again?
Yeah, lineage. So me and you have come from the same officers and the culture they created, and like that they made me want to come to work and work hard for them. Right? It never felt like a job. Lucky enough to be part of those crews, be part of those officers, learn what they did and what they expected. Going from Station 5 to Station 30, totally different territory. And then lucky enough, a spot opened up on our technical rescue team on Squad 4. And, I took it. And there's a lot of classes you have to take to be a part of that team, a lot of training.
You talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So Squad 4 at the time, technical rescue team here in the south end of the county. So some of the classes you have to be on that. We got structural collapse. We got trench rescues. You go on confined space calls. You go on deployments with GSP on the helicopter. We got the Chattahoochee River in our territory, so we do have swiftwater rescue capabilities. So that's a lot of training, a lot of technical aspects to get your head around and be proficient at, along with running EMS calls and going on structure fires and motor vehicle collisions. So the good thing with us is with Cobb Fire is we're starting to put those classes all on in the county, right? Which is huge because one, it kind of opens up the whole department to that type of training.
Yeah.
But two, to become a part of the technical rescue team, we're now getting to see and vet future members and prospects from those classes. So before they even put in their application, we kind of know what person they are. We know how dedicated they are. So that's been a huge help as far as progressing the technical rescue team forward.
You talked a little bit about like the training, but can you kind of talk about the disciplines or like really what's the responsibilities of the squad? What do you guys do? Like what makes Squad 7, Squad 16 different than our engine or ladder trucks or two-man rescue ALS units?
Yeah. The technical rescue team specializes in those high-risk, low-frequency calls, right? So like I mentioned before, high-angle rope rescues, structural collapses, confined space, swiftwater rescues, man versus machinery responses. And then, like I said earlier, we respond with Georgia State Patrol with helicopter missions. So there's a lot of those disciplines that we have to be good at, right? That's why we're on that truck.
Yeah. Not only is it a privilege to be on this high performing team, wherever it is, but like, what a privilege to be there, to have the ability to make a significant impact for somebody that, whether you know them or not, right? And a lot of times it's strangers, we don't know them, but I think that's the cool component of it, right? Like, you have the ability and the privilege to make a significant impact anytime that you're called out of that station.
Yeah. I'll use, last year we had a victim that was trapped in a concrete hopper. Basically, he was in there trying to break up some concrete material, and it had collapsed on him. It was out in Paulding County, so we got requested out there, and as the squad, as the kind of technical rescue team that had the equipment to come deal with this type of call. That's the great thing about the fire service is we get out there, and Squad 7, my team, my crew had never worked with the guys from Paulding County. Paulding County Waterworks were there, so there were all these different teams and people there, and the main goal was getting that victim out. It was a stressful call. A lot of equipment was involved. 6 to 7 hours later, we finally got him out, and
he lived.
And I've never been part of a scene where all those different people and teams came together, and watching him being flown out by the helicopter. It was just there's just something about the fire service that you don't get that in too many other careers.
No, and I probably don't have an accurate way to describe it, so I'll just try. But like, it feels pretty cool to be part of a team that succeeds, and then you transition to like officer. You make lieutenant, and like, there is no feeling like watching your team that you've prepared and trained and dialed in perform that way and be so successful. Like, it's almost like, you're seeing your kid score their first goal or something along those lines. Like, once you make that leadership transition, like, to see how everybody can be calm in the chaos because of the work you did to prepare them, but then their work to execute, like, it's just awesome. Like, that's the simplest way. It's awesome.
Yeah. And on that call, like you're saying, it's kind of like seeing your kid. Like, that was Parker Lee's first legit, technical rescue call, and he hadn't been with us long, and he's my guy, he's my new guy. Like, I am responsible for him, and now I'm asking him to suit up and go down into this environment that it was safe, but it wasn't. We had made it as safe as possible, but when there's a life to save, there's that gray area, and that's a risk that we signed up to take, and we took it. And as an officer, I was so proud of how he did. But it was also, it was stressful, right?
Sure.
We came back and we talked about it, and probably for about 2 weeks, I just kept thinking, I was like, man, that was my guy, and then that was a lot of responsibility, and it was. I was just super proud of how everyone handled themselves on that call. It's kind of crazy. We've had 4 trench calls in the last 2 years. We had that hopper call. None have been in the county. So other departments have called us, right? Called Cobb Fire, because of the personnel we have, because of the equipment, because of the training. That's the department I want to work for.
Yeah.
I want to be
that's
the department.
Pride, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's it's the same pride you have in your crew that you have in your department.
Right.
That, hey, when it's all on the line, they need us.
Right.
Yeah, and you want to make sure whatever the hazard is and whatever the call is, like, your people are able to perform.
Right.
So, that was obviously a challenging call with the concrete hopper. Is there any other like significant challenges that you've had to deal with or overcome in your career? you've encountered, whether it's company officer level, whether it was, call wise?
I think another challenge for me was coming back onto the technical rescue team, coming back onto Squad 7 as the leader, as the lieutenant, right? The officer, if you want to call it that, to pretty much the same crew that had taught me everything,
Sure.
right? I was the new guy on that same crew. So I don't know whether I doubted myself, but I was like, man, like, these are the guys that have taught me everything, and now, I'm meant to be leading them.
Yeah.
So that was a kind of a learning curve, and I had to, this is what I wanted, and again, you lean on those to help you mitigate some of those beliefs or those feelings that you might have. So, like I said, it's the people around you that.
You look at like the civilian side, and it's like, hey, the boss makes the decision. Like, the boss is always in charge. The boss tells us what to do. And then you look at the fire service, and it's like, yeah, our officer may, kind of tell us what direction we're going or set a plan up, but they're getting input, and like, you have these 4, 5, 6 different guys that are having eyes on a problem, and even though you're the supervisor, like, you're getting feedback all the time from your people. And they're helping you develop the plan just as much as you would have stepping off and looking at the problem.
Yeah, each one of those guys on the team has their strengths, right? Yeah. They're good at this, and being a good leader and being able to call on that and know what they're capable of, and it's just so comforting knowing and having those guys on the truck with you to be like, hey, this, I need you right here.
You're never alone,
right?
Like, and it's a comforting feeling.
Yeah, and that's what being part of a team is all about. You cannot be selfish and think you know everything by being part of a team. It just doesn't work.
So, let's say you got somebody who's interested in the job, not really sure where to start, what to do. Like, what would you tell them?
Oh man, like we've been talking about. Being part of a team, if that's something you've done or you find that important to you, there isn't much better than the fire service. The camaraderie that is within crews, within those stations. You come to work every third day and you're coming to a family. You don't really have that in the corporate world. It's hard to explain. You just have to experience it for yourself. And I think our department especially, we have that, right? There's a group of young leaders coming up through the ranks. The direction our department's going, it's family orientated, and I'm excited for that. And you're gonna experience some things, and you're gonna see some things, but I don't think there's a more rewarding career if you wanted to get into the fire service.
Best job I ever had.
That's right.
So, what's one little nugget of wisdom to leave somebody with?
Oh man, one little nugget.
Put you on the spot.
Yeah. Once you become that leader and you're in charge of people, and like you said, it's like it's watching your kid, or it's having that crew. As a leader, give them all the credit. Like, take all the criticism. I think that goes a long way. And rely on your crew. I think that's what I would take away from that.
Awesome. Last question. Can you say aluminum?
Aluminium.
Perfect. Thank you, Wes. This has been the Cobb
Thanks,
Fire.
Dustin.
Join Cobb Fire podcast.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, buddy.
Thank you for listening. Please like, follow, and subscribe for more content.